Next, in speech, you have a quiz. Let's study for our quiz. True or false? We learn more about ourselves from what others tell us about ourselves. True. Relationships need communication in order to thrive. True. People who are socially isolated are at a greater risk of developing a life-threatening disease. True. Communication competency is essential to professional success. True. I'm going to read this quote. I want you to tell me which aspect of the importance of communication does the quote apply to? Okay, here's the quote. Through communication, we get to know someone better, receive help in a crisis, feel a part of a group, find comfort, get something done, and enjoy ourselves. Is this talking about identity, relationships, health, or work? Okay, you should have said relationships. I'm going to read a definition. I want you to tell me which vocabulary word I'm referring to. Capable, sufficient for the purpose. Competent. A standard of conduct or behavior. Norm. To assess the quality or value. Evaluate. The range of skills, aptitudes, or special accomplishments of a person or group. Okay, just a minute.
Repertoire.
Repertoire. Can't ever say that word right. Okay. I'm going to read a scenario, and I want you to tell me the biggest reason that this communicator fails. Jamie needs to talk with Mr. Johnson, her teacher, about her grade on the last test. Just as class begins, she rushes up to Mr. Johnson and asks, "Can you tell me why I got this grade? I think I answered number 4 correctly." Why did that conversation fail? Okay, because Jamie did not keep into consideration the teacher. She didn't take Mr. Johnson into consideration. So she didn't take the person receiving the communication into consideration. Okay, let's try again. Jamie learns from her first mistake, but she still needs to talk to Mr. Johnson about her grade on the last test. She schedules a time to meet him, and at the meeting she states, "Why did you give me a bad grade on my test? It's unfair." Okay, why did this communicator fail? The task doesn't inform the approach. Remember, we have to take the appropriate approach for the task. Okay, Bill's in a real fix. He's promised his friend Carlos that he would play basketball at the park, but he had earlier promised to help out at home with the laundry. Bill calls Carlos. "Hey, I can't make it tonight. I'm not feeling so good. Must have been something I ate." Well, obviously, the communicator isn't being honest. Okay, why did this communication fail? Melinda has been asked to speak to her fellow students during the assembly. The old hall doesn't have a sound system, and the students strain to hear Melinda, who speaks barely above a whisper. Okay, Melinda is not keeping the people receiving the communication. She's not considering them. They can't hear her. Alright. What is the ability to interact with others in a manner that is honest and appropriate for the situation, the individuals involved, and the task? It's communication what? Okay, it's communication competence. Okay, so communication competence is the ability to interact with blank in a manner that is honest and appropriate for the situation, the individuals involved, and the task. Okay, it's the ability to interact with others. Communication competence is the ability to interact with others in a manner that is blank and blank for the situation, the individuals involved, and the task. Okay, communication competence is the ability to interact with others in a manner that is honest and appropriate. Okay. What determines the norms that govern interactions? The context. Whenever we are considering how to respond to a situation, we need to consider 3 criteria. What are they? Okay, appropriateness, truthfulness, and kindness. Paying close attention to blank helps you adjust your behavior so that it is more appropriate. Okay, paying close attention to feedback. What demonstrates that a message can be sent and received at the same time? The transactional model. Make sure you can label the parts of the transactional model. Okay, what is a verbal or nonverbal response? Feedback. A systemic process in which people interact with and through symbols to discover and interpret meanings. Communication. An individual involved in the communication process is what? A sender or a receiver. Anything that might interfere with the communication process is called what? Noise. Communication between at least 2 people. Is interpersonal communication. Communication used to solve problems and share ideas and experiences. Small group communication. Represents objects, ideas, processes, things, or events. Symbols. Transmission of messages to a large audience. Mass communication. Physical or social setting of communication. Context. A process by which one person or group presents a message in a formal manner to another group. Public communication. Okay. I want you to tell me the 3 factors of communication. communication between individuals is where individuals send and receive messages with each other. It is systematic. Remember we talked about the gears, they're interrelated, and it's symbolic, which means that we use verbal and nonverbal symbols when we communicate. What is communication competence? Alright, communication competence is the ability to interact with others in a manner that is honest and considerate, appropriate for the situation, appropriate for the individuals, and appropriate for the task. Okay? List the 4 key points of competent communication. Okay. The situation informs the approach. The communication is appropriate for the individual. The communication is appropriate for the task. And the communication is honest. Okay, I'm going to read a definition. I want you to tell me which word I'm talking about. Pertaining to a system or systems, pertaining to or affecting the entire body. Systemic. To act upon each other. Is to interact. An organized element of communication that includes meanings and symbols, encoding and decoding. A message. The thinking process in which ideas and emotions are transformed into symbols and organized into a message. Encoding. A theory describing the relationship among elements of communication. Transactional model. An individual's life history that affects his or her communication approach. Field of experience. Okay, if you had problems with any of that, I want you to go make sure you know it. Go back and study this before you take this quiz.